But that's enough Alabama talk for you Auburn fans that showed up to hear what Brian Stultz of AuburnSports.com had to say about the lessons he learned from going into year 2 of the Brian Harsin era after spring practice concluded this weekend. All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by my man Brian Stultz. Got to give him a follow on Twitter at Brian J. Stultz. I love his Twitter banner is worth checking him out just for that. His great sense of humor on Brian. And he, of course, covers the Auburn Tigers for AuburnSports.com, part of the Rivals Network. Brian, thank you so much for taking some time and talking some Auburn football with me.
Absolutely. Always my pleasure.
Well, I got to start when we're talking Auburn football. We have to start here with the quarterback competition. And I know last time we had you on the show, you were very high on the fact that Zach Calzada seemed to be the guy that was probably going to win the job. Now, he didn't get to go in spring. He was limited. So, you kind of assume maybe it was TJ Finley's time to shine. But based on what I've heard and based on what I saw in the spring game, and I know you covered it for AuburnSports.com, Robbie Ashford making a move there. Do you think he has positioned himself to be at least in legitimate conversation for the starting quarterback job?
Oh, absolutely. And, he was pretty accurate on 8-8. It wasn't a typical spring game. There was no contact and things like that. So we didn't really get to see all of what he's capable of. And that's probably a good thing because, as Brian Harsin said, when things go live with Robbie Ashford, you can really see how athletic and how elusive he is in the pocket. He was very, very, very accurate and efficient with the ball. But yeah, he definitely put on a show. TJ Finley, not so much. I think he kind of took a step down, and he's still being praised for his leadership this spring, but he's just not accurate with the ball anymore, but not accurate with the ball at all. With Calzada, we don't know what he's capable of yet, but I still put him and Ashford as the two leaders right now. We'll see more Calzada this fall once he totally heals from that surgery that he had. And, it'll be a good competition. We probably won't know until maybe game 1 to see who's going to be the starter. So it'll be something to watch all fall and maybe all summer.
Now, can you quickly give me the backstory on Robbie Ashford? Because I know he's an Oregon transfer. He's got no stats that I could find, and I think he was playing baseball up there. But my understanding, he's a local kid there in Alabama. Can you give the listeners a little insight into who Robbie Ashford is?
Yeah, he played at Hoover High School, which is one of the powerhouses in Alabama, and he signed with Oregon. He didn't see any action during the last 2 seasons, but he did play baseball for him. So, kind of getting that rust off of him, trying to see what he can do live after, not playing for 2 years, was interesting to see, and something they'll see, going into the summer and fall. But I think he has a lot of upside. I think he has a lot of ability. I mean, with this offensive line coming back, I think it totally helps to have someone who can scramble, and Finley's not that type of quarterback. Neither is Calzada, I don't think. But with him, he can, get out of the pocket, escape some pressure, and, that's something that will be needed from the quarterback in the system because, this offensive line, as experienced as they are, they're just not that good at pass blocking, and we'll see if he can come in and win the job.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there any red flags there from the spring game with real lack of success on the ground? Now, I know it was a unique format. It was a very quick game, and several offensive linemen did not participate, key offensive linemen, I should say. So I'm taking all that into consideration, but any concern on your level that the ground game's not where it needs to be right now?
Well, there's a couple of factors there. It is a little concerning that they weren't able to run the ball a little bit, especially with Tank healthy and stuff like that. Got to also mention that Jarquez Hunter is out for the spring due to an injury on his I think left foot, right foot, so one of the foots. So he wasn't in there either, and I think it was more about seeing what the quarterbacks could do in front of the fans and things like that. But yeah, if they can't run the ball with Tank Bigsby, they won't be able to run the ball with anybody. So there is a little concern. They want to go back to a downhill running game with the Keesaw, the new offensive coordinator, said, and they're splitting Tank out wide and things like that in the wide receiver formation and things like that. And so there is a little concern, but I wouldn't put too much into what happened on Saturday.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned, using Tank more as a receiver. We did see that in the spring game. We know Auburn's got a lot of quality tight ends headlined by John Samuel Shanker.
Yeah.
But outside of that, do they have many quality receivers? Because the best receiver, just in my opinion, on Saturday was Sean Jackson, and I believe he's a walk-on.
He's actually a running back, too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about Shed Jackson or?
Yeah, I'm
Sean
sorry.
Jackson.
Shed Jackson.
Shed Jackson. No. Yeah, he's a fifth-year senior. He had a decent season last year. He decided to come back. He is definitely the leading receiver for this team right now. He's become more of a leader too in the locker room, and hopefully he can have a breakout year. But yeah, the receiver position is wide open. I mean, you got Dawson, you have Johnston, you have Landon King, who's making the switch from tight end to wide receiver this year. A lot thought of what he can accomplish there. But yeah, there's a lot of inexperience there, and a lot of potential for these players to make a major impact this year because they just have no experience at that position other than Shed Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Now, what can you tell us about Auburn's got a young safety emerging here, Caleb Wooten. I know his brother is also on the team. Everybody knows his brother there, but Caleb, do you think he's going to make an impact here for Auburn's defense in the defensive backfield?
I think from day one he's made an impact on this team. He's come in the spring practice, and I think the first time we ever got to speak to Brian Hartson, he mentioned that Caleb made it forced a turnover and maybe made an interception. I've seen him make a couple of interceptions in practice as well. I think he'll be definitely a player on the field for the Auburn this season. He's come in, he's worked hard. I mean, he has the benefit of knowing what it takes from his brother, Colby, who's defensive lineman, and I definitely see Caleb making some major impact for Auburn this season.
Now, I think Derek Hall, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the SEC. He's outstanding, but Auburn really needs someone to step up opposite him to really have a formidable pass rush. And I'm hearing good things about the young guy, Dylan Brooks. What can you tell us about the spring that Brooks had?
Brooks had a pretty good spring. I would also put out, you got Iko Leota coming back, and Marcus Harris, who also can step up for them. Brooks has been a pretty big name this this spring. And, Derek Hall, watching him in practice, what impresses me the most is he's taking hands-on leadership with his team. He'll move the pylons. He'll move the tackling dummies to the right spot. If somebody runs a route or the drill wrong, he'll call him back. The coach doesn't have to call him back. Derek Hall calls him back, and he makes him restart the drill if it's not to his liking. So it's kind of funny to watch him grow as a leader. But yeah, Brooks is becoming, he's still young, still has to put some weight on, but at the edge position, they need all the help they can get because it's really thin right now. So we'll see if he can make an impact this fall.
Now, I think the last time we talked to you, Brian, I think Auburn was still searching for, to fill both its coordinator positions, and what they ended up doing, of course, is promoting guys from within, guys that know Harsin, have been with him for a number of years. So I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts, a couple weeks into it now that they've got a camp under their belt with Eric Kisau, I hope I'm saying that right, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Jeff Schmedding. What do you think of those hires by Brian Harsin and what that says about the Auburn program?
I think it's a smart move by Harsin. I think if he wants to win, he's got to win with his guys, and he's comfortable with those guys. And as you know, working with somebody that that you're familiar with, that knows how you operate, is always going to be a good thing because bringing in somebody else from the outside would have been, I think, a total disaster again. He likes these guys. He's coached with them before. He's won with them before. So I like the hire. I like the hire by Harsin because it's his guys. And if he's going to go down with the ship, might as well go down with your guys. So how it will work out, we don't know. The defense should be pretty good. Now the offense with Keyshaw this year, who knows? I mean, it all starts with the offensive line, like I said, and that's a very, very weak spot for Auburn the past few years. And but when it's funny because when Auburn is written off, that's when they make some noise. So it'll be an interesting fall to see if they can make some noise in the SEC and maybe get Harsin some job security here.
Mm-hmm. Now, when they make those promotions, so of course then there's openings on the staff, and Harsin, to his credit, I think he nailed a lot of these hires. Christian Robinson has been he was doing a great job for Florida for a long time. Jimmy Brumbaugh's been all over the league coaching defensive line, a former Auburn lineman, and then Ike Hilliard, of course, everybody knows that name, 20 plus years in the NFL. Any early thoughts on those hires and how they could help Auburn on the field and in recruiting?
I'm especially impressed with Christian Robinson. We got to sit down with him a couple weeks ago, and he is just a bright man. He's very confident. He knows what he's doing. Obviously he knows what he's doing, or he wouldn't have the job. But he was very, very confident. Knows what he's talking about, how he operates. His recruiting approach is probably what's best for the program because he can go. I'm guessing he can go into any room and speak to anybody and win their loyalty because he won me over. So, but yeah, Ike Hilliard. I mean, any fan of the SEC back in the '90s knows what he's capable of as a receiver, but as a coach, he's coached at the highest level with some teams in the NFL, and having that experience at the top level, coming down to Auburn and kind of teaching these guys what it takes to make it to the next level is a very good step. I think those were home run hires by him. Also, like Rock Bellantoni, the new special teams and the edge coach. I've known him since his days at Washington State. He's a great leader, great teacher, great man. I think Harsin made just grand slam with all these hires. So I was really impressed with what he did with the open positions.
Yeah, and last thing I wanted to ask you about the coaching staff, Brian. I know you wrote this at auburnsports.com, but a new feel there in spring because we're done with the Zoom interviews. You got to be in person with Brian Harsin. You talked about how badly that was needed down there on the plains. Can you kind of retell that story and just getting eye to eye with Brian Harsin and how that may have kind of helped him down there at Auburn?
Oh, absolutely. I think Zoom calls are very, very difficult. You can't get a read on anybody. And since he took the job, it's all about Zoom. We haven't met with him in person once. And, it's hard to get, how Zoom calls are. I mean, you can definitely fall asleep or lose the attention span really quickly. But in person, he's very dynamic. He's very personable. If you ask him a question, he's going to stare at you when you make eye contact the entire time and answer your question. Sometimes maybe too long. He does have a lot of word cabbage there. But he is very, very, very approachable, very personable in person, and it was a delight to see. I wrote that it's a different Brian Harsin than we got to know over Zoom, because just meeting him in person, seeing how he is, seeing how he reacts with players and things like that, it was a delight to see. So, yeah, I wrote that as a Brian Harsin that Auburn fans should get behind. That should happen. I think a lot of people will rally around him because of what happened this offseason. But the bottom line is he has to win, and that's the bottom line at Auburn. So, but yeah, I was really impressed with him. A couple times we met him in person, and I think it's best for him that he gets to go out there and meet with us and win over some of the media. I would say as well, because that we can be your friends or we can be your enemies sometimes. So. It was great to see, and I think a lot of people took that out of it. With that, it was very nice to actually get to talk to him in person.
All right, last thing for you, Brian. I really appreciate all your time, but how much of an advantage do you think it could be for this Auburn team right out the gate? The schedule is what I'm looking at: 2 home games, Mercer and San Jose State. And, considering all the moving pieces on the Plains and you don't know who your quarterback is, you're looking for help all across the board. Getting off to a nice 2-0 start before that big Penn State game, how much could that really help this Auburn team in particular?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely critical. This is one of those seasons where if they open in a neutral site against, Oregon or, somebody like that, it would be, it'd be hard to see them winning in a neutral site against a top team like they have in the past. But yeah, getting those wins against Mercer and San Jose State. San Jose State's not a pushover by any chance, but getting those wins, getting some good vibes and things like that, and then welcoming Penn State, which Auburn could beat Penn State. I mean, they should have beat them last year up in college, State College, but they fell just short. And then having that at home, having a big time environment against a Big Ten team, but being 2-0 going in that game would be huge for this team because after all they've been through, after a 5-game losing streak at the end of the season, some good things need to happen to this team because they need it and they deserve it. So, that definitely helps.
He's Brian Stultz. Give him a follow at Brian J. Stultz and check out all his outstanding work over at auburnsports.com. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate our conversations.
Absolutely. Anytime, my friends.
All right, so just want to say thanks again to Brian for joining the show. As always, man, I really appreciate him. He's been on the show a number of times this off season, and he always delivers, comes with the knowledge on them Auburn Tigers. So cannot thank him enough. And don't forget to give him a follow at Brian J. Stultz on Twitter.